welcome to this Friday edition of First Take. Es Viernes. I'm MJ Acosta-Ruiz. We've got Stephen A. Smith, Cam Newton, and Ryan Clark all in the gang today. But guys, let's
to my boys.
Okay.
What up, my guy?
To my
Look
boys.
at the squad.
To my boys. Good morning. To MJ, como está?
Muy bien. Buenos dias. He's in the Miami vibe. Full force.
Stephen A. is not Dominican, guys. Like, we have to stop it.
Who's to say? Have we done the ancestry?
But Juvie is. My boy Juvie is. Remember that, Austin, my bodyguard. That's right.
Plenty Dominican for all, okay? Let's go. Let's dive right into that Thursday night upset. Craziness last night. The Giants took it to the defending champs with rookies Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo leading the way. Dart threw for a touchdown and ran for another, while Scatterbo added 3 scores of his own. Big Blue defense also stepped up, forcing 2 turnovers and keeping the Eagles off the board in the second half. The 34-17 win was New York's first division win since 2023. Eagles players were not happy post-game. Take a listen.
The execution isn't there. We get behind the chains. I get very predictable. At the end of the day, we got to be able to keep the defense guessing, not be predictable.
I don't get into it's predictable or pointing fingers. Like, I'm not gonna. I think KP's doing a hell of a job, but we all got to be better, and that's just the truth. And if anybody else thinks anything different, they got to wake up.
I got to be better. Got to be better. I take ownership for it. A lot of autonomy, a lot of opportunity there with the ball in my hands, and given those situations, I have to be wiser and more detailed with it.
We sat here yesterday trying to dissect what was going on with the Eagles. What is the disconnect? Why are they not winning? Why are they playing the way that they are? Just bad football. We heard Jalen Hurts right there take accountability for his portion of this. But Cam, how much blame is on Jalen Hurts for this loss?
Well, I don't think it's too much on Jalen Hurts than it is to Kevin Patullo. I mean, in any type of dynamic with this, you don't want to make matters worse. Nobody wants to play the blame game, but we have to play the accountability game. And when I look at Jalen Hurts' career, the thing that he has not openly said but needs to be taken into consideration is Jalen Hurts, out of his years in Philadelphia, has had a different signal caller in the last 5 years. When you look back, Kevin Patullo this year, Kellen Moore last year, Brian Johnson the year before that, and it's changing and changing. When I look at this type of dynamic, when you look at Kevin Patullo's kind of history of play calling, this is his first time calling plays in an actual game for an actual team. Now, that doesn't mean you haven't assisted in gameplay strategies, game planning, or designing plays or whatever, but it's a little different when you have the opportunity to call the actual play in real time. The thing to give this more reference is, if nobody has ever drove before, Stephen Anthony, Ryan Terry, and Maria Josetta, if nobody has ever drove before as a high school student, you're expecting a plucker to come into the driveway or to the student parking lot. Well, if this is your first time driving, you basically gave Kevin Patullo a Rolls-Royce Cullinan and said, hey, go drive. And he's been underperforming all year. But now teams are not bailing him out in the last 2 weeks. Now things are getting exposed, and it's going to get extremely interesting in Philadelphia moving forward.
Well, let me say this. First things first. First Take, obviously, #1 morning show in sports for the last 13 straight years. You can't come on national television and be calling people out their names. That's what our names are. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to.
Everybody is what my name is. That's my real name.
I'm just saying, he making up stuff. That Quavius and all. I mean, come on now. You got to be careful with stuff like that. That's number one. Number two, here's my thing. I don't agree with you, Cam. I got to push back on you with this. Here's why. Yeah, you got an offensive coordinator, a new one. Obviously, his first time calling plays. I don't know what the hell they're thinking, particularly with the trouble that Nick Sirianni has had in the past, where he ultimately had to give up play calling, for crying out loud. I got to think about those kind of things, right? And so when you make that transition, it needs to be a more experienced voice, a more experienced hand. And losing Kellen Moore last year to being the head coach for the New Orleans Saints, obviously has affected them drastically. We get that part. But Jalen Hurts is no rookie. He's been in this league long enough where if you've got an offensive coordinator, of course you want to defer to him. Of course he's the authoritative figure. But you got to get in his ear and be like, yo, man, this is a bit predictable. This ain't working. People are calling us boring. People are calling us predictable. And then they're going out about the business of showing us that's exactly what the hell we are. And it's working to our detriment. Over the last 2 games, I'm just looking at the Philadelphia Eagles right here, okay? This is the Philadelphia Eagles that we're talking about here. Passes per attempt for their first 4 games, RC, Cam, they were throwing the ball 25 times a game. Over the last 2 games, it's 35 times. They were rushing the ball nearly 33 times a game. That's dipped to 15 and a half. They were scoring 27 a game. It's now at 17 a game. What the hell is going on? When we talk about an identity, we don't know who they are because they don't know who they are. You're looking at wide receivers. One minute you think they're calling out Jalen. Another minute you think that they're looking at the offensive coordinator and saying, what the hell is going on? But then you see Devontae Smith wide open. He gets missed. You see A.J. Brown wide open when Hurts throws that interception. A.J. Brown was wide open in the end zone. Wide open. Just a few feet behind him, but he made the wrong decision. You got to take those into account and look at him. Those are not offensive coordinator play calling right there. That's Jalen Hurts missing, and we have to point that out. That's not to say that you completely absolve Petula. I get that part. But Jalen Hurts said it best. He's got to play better. He's got to do better. And most importantly, he's got to look better because right now everybody's looking at him and they're seeing how predictable the Eagles' offense is. And the Giants showed that it played right into their hands last night.
Honestly, this game is on Jalen Hurts. And I'm not saying that's the only reason that they lost, right? Quinyon Mitchell is injured. Jalen Carter is injured. We understand how that defense was behind the sticks. But let's go to the end of the half. Jalen Hurts has an opportunity to get Bates in field goal position. He scrambles on 3rd down. He slides. They don't get a field goal. They don't get an opportunity. They don't get another play. That's a mismanagement of the clock by Jalen Hurts. Devontae Smith is running wide open down the seam after a coverage bust, and Jalen Hurts overthrows him. Stephen A. has already mentioned that A.J. Brown was open on the man coverage where he throws the interception, attempting to get the ball to Jahan Dotson, but he has to put that football on the outside. Those are all Jalen Hurts mistakes, and there's a lot of time that I feel like Jalen Hurts goes into a post-game press conference and it's coach speak, right? It's quarterback speech. It's leadership speech where he is taking the blame and taking accountability for things he didn't do. That wasn't last night. Stephen A. has this saying, and I love this saying. He says, don't let it be on you. If we're sitting here today and the score is 34-33 and Jalen Hurts makes every single play that he's supposed to make, if he gets them in field goal range at the end of the second quarter, if he makes that throw to Devontae Smith, if he doesn't throw that interception, then we can say, Kevin Petula, injuries on defense, this ain't on the quarterback. In this league, it's the big 4 in the AFC, it's Matthew Stafford, and it's Jalen Hurts. We expect certain things out of those players. And last night, Jalen Hurts did not lead up or end up upholding that standard.
1 for 9 on 3rd downs last night, 3 for 20 on 3rd downs over the last 2 games. I don't know of any offensive coordinator on the planet who's that awful without it being on the players to some degree. I just don't, Cam.
Yeah, listen, I think there is a hidden message in this kind of display of playing. And we always like to point fingers at players, or even in this particular case, excuse you, Stephen A. But point fingers in the direction of who's responsible. But have we ever thought that Kevin Petula is making a message to say, hey, what does this say about Jalen Hurts? I don't want to send any flare guns or certain things, because when you hear players say, hey, these are very predictable plays, when you see A.J. Brown's route tree extremely basic, when you see certain things kind of manifesting, the offensive coordinator really cannot come out and say, hey, we don't have the personnel to do certain things, rather than saying, I'm going to play to my personnel's strengths. And that may be a message within its own self.
Kevin Patullo is doing what he saw Kellen Moore do and trying to put his spin on it in the sense that play calling is a science and an art, right? You got to understand the X's and O's, the tips and tendencies. You got to know what formations you're going to get, what they're going to bring pressure-wise out of a personnel. But you also have to be able to feel it, right? You got to feel when it's right. You got to know how to use A.J., Devontae, Saquon, understand this offensive line. And he hasn't done that. So when they're not doing that, what does the quarterback do? What does the star receiver do? What does the Hall of Fame offensive lineman do? The future Hall of Fame running back? These players have to step up. Something has to change, or we'll be seeing the Philadelphia Eagles exit the playoffs much earlier than expected 5 weeks ago.
The instinct and the chemistry is so important, Stephen A.
By the way, why are you rushing the football 15 and a half times with Saquon Barkley as your running back? And, oh, by the way, if you're not going to give him the ball to run, if you're not going to pass, you're not going to hand it off for him to run the football. You know, he has shown you could utilize him even out of the passing game as well. He's that skilled. He's that versatile. Why is it that, you know, it's not just about not running the football. It's about the non-usage of him. And I'm starting to wonder why. When I see him talking post-game or whatever, he's out on the field. He ain't sitting there talking about being out, being hurt. He seems ready to go. Something is really, really, really wrong. And you just see demoralization kicking in. And honestly speaking, we didn't want to go here, but we're going to have to go there. It sort of justified the abundance of storylines and the enormous level of skepticism and speculation that has been surrounding this franchise, even dating back to last year, because you're seeing stuff that you ain't supposed to see from winners. It's just that simple.
Saquon had fewer than 15 touches in consecutive games for the first time with the Eagles. They don't do well when that happens. They're 0-3 when he has fewer than 15 touches, and we saw it last night. And the storylines, yes, they continue because before the game, Jalen Hurts and Saquon confirmed that the two of them, along with A.J. Brown, met earlier in the week to discuss the problems with the Eagles' offense. But last night after the loss, A.J. Brown said, wait a minute now. Take a listen.
You had this meeting this past week with Saquon and Jalen. What was behind that?
I don't recall a meeting.
Oh, okay. The meeting never happened.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Those guys said it did happen.
Oh, you ain't talked to them.
You weren't in the meeting?
I don't recall.
Or you don't want to?
I don't recall.
I don't recall. It's crazy. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Now I'm confused. We're all confused.
Look, he's so ready. Look at him.
Well, let me say this, and this is where my qualifications kick in. And I'm going to say this to any player out there. You can do that. That's fine. Because, again, Saquon and I think Jalen acknowledged that they met. Nick Sirianni acknowledged that the three of them, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, had met. That's what teammates do and all of that stuff. You don't have to comment, Cam. You don't have to comment, RC. You know that. But when you say stuff like you don't recall or you're willing to omit or you're willing to lie, listen, A.J. Brown's a good dude. I ain't questioning his character by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying when you do that, you put people in position covering the team to say what they want. Let me tell you what I used to do, RC and Cam. I would go up in locker rooms, right? And I'd ask you a question. And if you came to me with that kind of answer, I'd literally smile in your face. And I'd say, so you're giving me the license to speculate. You sure you want to do that? You sure you want to go that route? You know what I'm saying? And I'd look the athlete right in their face. I'm right here. I'm asking you. You don't have to speak. You can say no comment. You can say, yo, I can't go there. Some of the cats that I've been tightest with throughout the years, it's because if they couldn't answer, they'd be like, Steve, I can't go there. Stephen A., I can't touch that. Bam, no problem. But when you try to act like something I know happened, didn't happen, now the issue of trust comes into play. And as a result, I get to look you right in your face and say, you sure you want to leave it up to me to speculate? A.J. Brown has to be careful. And why am I qualified to say that, Cam? I've been at ESPN for years. Where did I work for 17 years, RC? Where did I work for 17 years, Cam? Right there in Philadelphia. 17 years I worked in Philadelphia. I know that city. And I'm telling you, how he handled that last night, he could smile. It could be cool. But at a pivotal moment where he needs action, accuracy and he needs trust and he needs his words to be believed, he's going to run into a problem because of a moment like that. Floor is y'all's.
Yeah, see, I guess I don't get what you think is going to come from answering that way. When you obviously know when the reporters come to you or the media comes to you and says and to ask you about a meeting that you know you had, it's because they already know you had it. Right? If your old lady walking up to you with your phone and she asks you, why is you texting old girl? She already know you texted her. You can't say I don't recall then. You got to give an answer. So when they come up to you after the game and they ask you that question, you have to get an answer. You can give the answer and say, you know what? I don't want to talk about that meeting.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter that we had that meeting. Or what goes on between my teammates and I is not your business. But to say I don't recall something that happened that week, whether it didn't or it did happen, is now you playing in the face of the media. And this is what I know. When you play in the face of the media, they're going to mess with your life. They're going to mess with your career. They're going to make it difficult to function and maneuver within your locker room with any type of comfort. And A.J. knows that because he's been dealing with it for the last 3 years.
Have we thought about this? What if A.J. Brown wanted you guys to have this type of discussion? What if A.J. Brown has said, hey, I want to go on another peaceful protest? What if A.J. Brown has made it abundantly clear that he is not happy as a Philadelphia Eagle as of late? Maybe A.J. Brown has been feeling this type of way for some time, and winning has been the only mascara, blush, or eyeliner that has been able to cover up all the blemishes. And now all of a sudden you get to a point now where you're not winning no more, bro. You're not winning no more. And now you sit up here and you ask yourself, the real critters start to come out when the light hits the room. And A.J. Brown has identified and said to himself, hey, man, whether y'all wanted to have a meeting or not, I wasn't there or I checked out. So was I really there? And it calls for even more speculation because it is toxic. It is messy. But you don't have winning to be able to sweep that under the rug anymore. And now everything is coming out.
But I don't know. But, like, here's the thing. Why is A.J. Brown mad? Like, when you look at the last 4 games, 10 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets, 9 targets, like, outside of people like Puka Nacua, that's a lot of opportunities to go out and make plays, whether you like your route combination, whether you like your matchups, whether you like the creativity of the offense or not. So, and this isn't a target question. This isn't a happiness question. This is just like a fact question.
He only had 2 fewer targets than Dallas Goedert, who was a top pass catcher last night.
Go ahead,
and the thing that's most important, is that none of us are wrong. What I said, what RC said, what you said, Cam, all can be true. The issue with A.J. Brown, however, is this. Okay, you know what? If I'm open and you're missing me, right? Well, then obviously it's going to highlight statistically opportunities that were missed because I was wide open, you didn't get me the ball. So when I'm not open, but we gonna notice that, right? He wants to speak, but he wants to speak in riddles and all of that stuff. No, you got to be direct at some point. You got to man up. You're a professional athlete. You feel something, say something. If you don't want to say something, that's cool too. Say no comment. But when you do what he did, all I'm saying is you're inviting folks to speculate. And in the end, he'll end up getting burned because he didn't come out and make sure his position was cleared.
Stephen, I have a question for you.
Was clear. At some point in time, somebody's got to do that so you can find out what the hell's going on with the Eagles and fix it.
Stephen A., how much of this could be similar to what Shedeur Sanders did when he was getting so much criticism from the media and he pantomimed, right? And so now A.J. Brown, who has been getting a ton of criticism from the media as well, what if this is his way to say, I don't recall, and kind of do the same thing as if I'm not going to give you anything to talk about?
Totally valid. But the flip side is Shedeur Sanders is a QB3 trying to make it into the league. A.J. Brown is an all-world receiver who's a Super Bowl champion. And for some reason can't publicly state specifically, yo, This is one of my problems. And maybe it's for the right reasons. You don't want to call out your quarterback. Maybe it's because you don't want to call out your offensive coordinator. Maybe it's maybe it's because you don't want to just flat out say, look, I want the hell up out of here, but you want other people to figure it out so you can have plausible deniability. All of those things are relevant. All I'm trying to say is that a Cam and RC, who are obviously former players, y'all are still connected big time to them. You're going to be, and I don't say this in a negative way, you're going to be protective of the culture. If they're right, you're going to come to their defense. If they're wrong, you're going to be honest and call them out. I appreciate that from y'all. But the flip side is that it's easy to blame the media, when in fact you're not taking into account the level of culpability you as a player have because you left it up to their interpretation instead of owning it yourself. And you got to remember, anybody in the media worth their salt has sources all over the place. I assure you, Philadelphia beat writers, there are an abundance of people that are whispering in their ears. They know what the hell is up. And A.J. Brown has to figure out how to handle it for his own, I don't want to say survival, but just his own peace of mind. He's got to figure it out.
MJ, I heard you say something in regards to statistics backing, him being targeted, but I would like to kind of use the analogy of those targets being empty calories. When you have a lot of targets, but you don't have nothing more than 50 yards, that's just a scream. That's just a bubble. That's just in this game he did. Mm-hmm. But in other games, it's just been meaningless, just catches just to, kind of shun you and just hush you up. When have we had a time where we said A.J. Brown is a dominant receiver? Was it last night? Nope. Was it the week before? Nope. It was the second half of the Los Angeles Rams game where that's his type of game that he wants to play. And those games, that game was backed with yards. That game was backed with, hey, we're getting a point of emphasis to say we're going to get you the ball because we want you to take over. So those little targets, that's cool and all, but hey, I want to pop the top open and I want you to open up this offense. And he's basically saying that without saying, like, I'm not happy with the philosophy here. And it goes back to Kevin Patullo. And if it's not Kevin Patullo, it's Jalen Hurts. And I will keep saying it until people really understand it has nothing to do with hating. It's just basically saying this individual has shown time and time again he's not happy. And whatever we need to do to make him happy, we need to start inserting that type of philosophy moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think he's wrong in that assertion or in how he feels, for sure. He's the one in that locker room. He's the one fighting for his career, for his numbers, all of that.
Absolutely.
I wrote one note. Say it with your chest. Come on, AJ, say it with your chest. And I think eventually the frustration will get to a head